Mute, Faisal. Okay, let's go back to Subhan. Subhan, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead. What will you do, sir?
I would not open it, and I would report it to the authorities. Yeah, same thing.
Okay. Brother Nishit. Okay, very good. So all the answers are right. But first thing I will do is I will see what the company policy is. So your company will have a policy on those, right? So your company says, okay, this kind of emails, send it to this department. So you'll be just following those policies. In case your company doesn't have the policy, tell your CISO to create a policy on that. That's the first step, right? And after that, if the company doesn't have policy, then you can do what all of you said. So basically, at work, just don't take any risk. Just forward it to your CISOs or BISOs, whoever it is. Ask them, hey, is it safe to open this email? I got this email. I think it's a phishing email. So let me know. First, you just do some investigation yourself too. But if you are 100% confident that okay, this is good email, you're good, and everything seems legit, you're fine. You open it. If you have like even like 0.001% of uh, 1% of doubt, 0.01% of doubt, follow the company policy. If company policy doesn't have any, if company doesn't, then just send it to your CISOs or whoever in charge your company systems are for your company security. Make sense, folks? So just don't take the risk. If you have any, as there is 0%, 0.1%, you have a doubt, just sure, or your company lawyers or whatever it is. Okay, folks, very good. Who wants to go next?
I have it ready here.
Go ahead.
Let's
Ehsan, go ahead, sir.
share. Yeah. All right. I'll be very brief. So basically, the five of us, we have a group. We study together. Anybody else are welcome to join if you want to. So everyone contributed. Faisal contributed the most on this one. Question one was types of threats in cybersecurity. We identified them as three: malware, phishing, and insider threats. Malware, obviously, malicious software designed to disrupt and gain unauthorized access. Ransomware, they lock company's file and so forth. City of Atlanta had one not too long ago, a couple of years ago. Basically, they took advantage of Windows Register, where as soon as you log in, um, it tries to access some websites they do not exist, and these can go on for hours and hours. Windows had an issue where if the IP address or the website DNS is not found, it kept trying. It kept trying. So they ended up settling that because all their computers were basically useless. As soon as the login, internet IE browser was trying to access these websites that they do not exist, and they were basically locking up the whole system. So a malware can do those kind of things. That's an example. Phishing is everybody else talked about it. I'm not gonna elaborate on it too much. Basically, an email where it can be, it can tell you to download something. And as you all know, any user action can be interpreted as yes, right, in coding world. So You click on download, but or you click on click, but maybe the image, the code inside the image will take it as an accept, meaning you allow the software to be installed and so forth. Inside a thread, disgruntled employee copied all the credit card information into an USB drive and so forth. Question number 2 was understanding vulnerabilities. Basically, as others explained, it's a hole that that exists in our fort. So you're building a fort, but you have a weak spot that you need to look at. So identifying and addressing this weak spot is our job as a security specialist. Professor Mujib touched base on several scanning tools. We can use those and identify them and so forth. A company has a baseline as well. 5 critical hole types are software vulnerability. Say you have a code that was checked into Git, but that allows SQL injection. So we can have, whether using GitHub or GitLab, we can have those scanning tools turned on. So as soon as the code is checked in, it can see that, yes, if the code is checking for SQL injections and so forth. That's an example. Human vulnerability, errors or lack of awareness by users. Users are not trained, that we just discussed, the phishing email and so forth, or somebody very well dressed is behind you, so you hold the door for them so they can get in. Looks can be deceiving.
True.
Phishing vulnerabilities, gaps in physical security. We just discussed that somebody very well dressed or couple of very professional looking people behind you, don't let them in. You should not be. Network vulnerabilities, we talked about, others talked about it. Weakness in network architecture. Nowadays, HTTP is, it's big no-no, but a lot of people, they still use the port.
True.
Yeah, the port there, even though they use HTTPS, but they expose the port. We should not do those. Unnecessary port openings and so forth. They should be checked. And again, Professor Mujib talked about it, and they can all be scanned and checked. Oh, last one is the configuration vulnerability. Professor Mujib talked about it, where we have username and admin password. A lot of routers, a lot of devices, a lot of databases like Postgres still comes in with admin 123 and so forth.
True.
The default installation. So make sure we take care of those. Types of cybersecurity. I have an image here. It's still it's not loading. Okay, I'll look into that. We identified as 2 passive attacks and active attacks. Passive attacks are eavesdropping on network traffic. Professor Mujib touched base on that. The sniffer tool. The sniffer tool can look into the network traffic and look into all the packets, and so those unencrypted communication, we just talked about it, the HTTP versus HTTPS, and data interception. Again, basically a sniffing tool can figure things out. Active attacks are denial of service, data modification, system compromise. So these are, Professor Mujib talked about it, where certain IP address can start sending requests to our web servers, DDoS attacks, and overwhelm our servers and so forth. Question number 4 was countermeasure. What is your defense strategy? How do you fortify your fort? Others talked about scanning tools and so forth, and countermeasures are the actions, devices, and procedures we do just to protect these things. We have technical countermeasures are MFA, multi-factor authentication.
Beautiful.
It's become a standard nowadays. Firewalls and encryption. That's the standard nowadays. We don't see HTTP anymore. Everywhere is HTTPS. Even a lot of companies, they won't allow you, even you're using HTTPS, they won't allow you to deploy your web server unless it's on a web server port and so forth. Encryption is 256 byte encryption is everywhere nowadays. regular patches and updates. A lot of OSs have, just the way I was explaining the Windows vulnerability,
Subhan
where
have a question. Hassan, can you?
Yes, I was just trying to ask about HTTPS, the thing you're repeating. Can I ask what is that?
so some folks, they are using an HTTPS. They are using a certificate, a public and private certificate. However, instead of running it on port 80, they are running it on port 501 or port 300 or port 5001, because during the development, when they're doing the coding on their own laptop, they are used to with code 3001 or 5001 and so forth. But when you are developing and when you're doing some work for a corporate or a external entity, you should always deploy your web server on a known port, such as
Okay,
80 or 443, which is the HTTPS port.
okay, okay. Thank you, brother.
You're welcome. Regular patches and updates. I just told you about the City of Atlanta hack attack, where they took an advantage of Windows bug, where if Windows could not reach a website, it kept trying, it never gave up. So it was a simple virus or simple malware. All they did is registered 5 or 7, I forgot the exact number, unknown website, and register. As soon as you log in, the register will spawn IE, and it was trying to connect to those web pages, and it was hanging up. So Windows immediately released a patch, and basically, if a web server doesn't exist, if the DNS doesn't respond, it would stop right away. So, but as a cybersecurity professional, we have to know what all those patches are available. Professor Mujib showed us a website last time. We have to go there regularly, see what patches are applicable to our organization, and update them and install them and so forth. Antivirus software, it's not only on your desktop, also on your server components and so forth. We need to implement that. Administrative countermeasure, we talked about security policies, others touch base on them. Every company has security policies and protocols. We make sure that they are maintained. On the cloud environment, all the cloud providers like Amazon, Azure, Google, they also are implementing security measurements where you can run their tools and they will tell you how many EB2 servers you have and how many ports are exposed, how many ports are running without HTTPS, and so forth. So we need to make sure that we take those measures so that whether we are on our personal desktop or we are on premise or we are on cloud, if all is all taken care of. Recurring employee training. The recurring part is the most important part. Professor Mujib talked about it. Basically, we don't train them on day one and think that they are an expert. There should be a 6-month or yearly review. In the professional organization with high security clearance, they have security clearance. They have trainings every 6 months and so forth. Background checks. Obviously, you don't want to hire. If you know a disgruntled employee, may steal your database or may steal all your credit card information. Background checks are important. Access control policies. Every level, nowadays people are implementing it. The operations should not have update and insert privilege on production database. Operations are there just to make sure everything's going through fine. And higher level support can have update privileges and so forth. Physical countermeasure. Security cameras, they are important. Biometric locks and access control, others talked about it. Secure disposal of documents. Brother Sarosh talked about it too. A lot of companies, literally, if you have a printer and no one had collected a 20-page printout for 2 days. Usually there is a big locked box right next to it where people are disposing it there. I know companies where the CEO and CTO, they printed out everybody's salary range, and then there was a fight next day because some of the contractors were making more than the managers and so forth, and that became a big problem because the CEO printed it out and forgot to pick it up, the printout. Hardware protection, the room should be locked. as others mentioned, not everyone should have secure, not everyone should have access to the server room and so forth. Last thing is the social engineering, the people hack, CTO. There are a lot of rumors out there that Equifax CTO received an important email saying it had his name on it, and basically said, "Hey, John, so and so, this is the summary you requested the other day." And some of the CTOs and CEOs, they are so busy that they don't even know. They asked for reports from everybody, and they forgot who they asked, and they open, and next thing you know, everything is compromised. So the social engineering, basically, they design it such a way that that in this case they knew the CEO or CTO's name at Equifax and so forth. I just talked about this phishing, the spear phishing, where you target the CTO, CEO, or somebody who does do this kind of job, asking for reports from other people and so forth. Pretexting is something else. Someone pretending like a new employee calls the help desk and say, "Hey, my password needs to be reset." Most likely, they found the badge or something somewhere, and they found, they figured out the 800 number. They called the 800 number and use the badge, and and so forth. So these are targeted practices. Key takeaways: understand the threat and the landscape, like everybody else emphasized. Identify and address vulnerabilities. Distinguish attack types. Implement layered defense. It's not just one thing, one thing that covers all. It's multiple layers and so forth. And training is very important.
No, very good, brother. Excellent points. So a couple of things here, right, Ehsan? If you go on one slide before you, one more on policies. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands, policies. Policies are very important. Can you name one or two policies, the commonly used policies in all the companies? You have to have those policies.
So
Anybody? Mhm.
okay, so for instance, as far as your personal laptop goes, obviously, as soon as you log in, you have to be on VPN. Without being on VPN, you cannot.
No, I understand that. That's the controls we are talking about. If you go back one more slide. So here you said administrative countermeasures, right? So that will be security policies and protocols. So can you give me one or two examples of what will be basically so for example, you are a CISO of Ehsan, brother Ehsan, you're the CISO of the company, and then brother Sarosh is basically he is the CEO of the company. Okay, and then he'll come and tell you, brother Ehsan, can you create some policies for our company, security policies? So what are the top two policies you consider to be critical for your company? I'm going to ask everybody this question that you have to create. Remember, we covered in
Yeah,
our
one
previous.
is that when you are hiring a new employee, before hiring, you have
No,
to
I'm not
have
talking
his
about control. I'm talking, just give me the name of the policies. What will
name
that come to? Mhm. So I'll give you an example, right? Acceptable use policy. So brother Hassan, you'll go and tell brother Sarosh, yeah, I'll create a acceptable use policy. That means basically what an employee can do and what a employee cannot do in the company. That is the first thing you have to have in your company, right? So the employee knows, okay, these are the things I can do, these are the things not allowed in the company for me, right? Acceptable use policy, right? So like that, give me another policy do you think is very important? Anybody? Absolutely, very good, very
Access
good.
control
Access
policy.
policy, yeah, password policy, password and authentication policy, whatever you can call it. Yeah, password policy, very good. Yeah. So, brother, like when you say password policy, right? What kind of controls you will put in place in password policy? One, you said basically change your passwords every 60 days or 90 days, whatever. What's the other most important nowadays? Everybody is going through.
like it should have some length of the password, minimum length, as well
Yeah.
as it should
Mhm.
have some characters,
So
some
let
numbers,
me
character.
give
Yeah.
me one too, brother Sarosh.
Special character.
So when you try to access your bank account now, how do you access it?
Yeah, MFA is near to
Absolutely,
yeah.
yeah. MFA is the very important thing. Right nowadays, always make sure your policy should have a MFA too in it when you're talking about password policies. Yes, very good, very good. So what other policy? I'll just go ahead one more, and then we'll move to next one. Anybody else? You think? Yeah, absolutely. Very good. But there are a lot of like backup policies, right? Data backup policies, data classification policies. There are so many policies. So review those, understand those too. That is also very important. And what is the benefit of having those policies in place? Anybody? Just one
Yeah,
benefit,
Uh,
one
you
word.
secure
put more
workloads.
control on the system. Fine.
So
On
what happens when you put controls on the system? What happens?
So
then you have less risk.
Less attacks.
Absolutely. Yep. So you're
also
basically securing your systems with those policies, right?
also those scanning tool we talked about, we
Mhm.
can configure those scanning tools and make sure that the IAM policies are in place, also the password policies are in place, so we can
Mhm.
scan based on those baselines.
Yes. So what is the ultimate goal of that, Isan?
A preventive measure.
Yes.
Less attacks.
Yes, very good. So what happens when you have less attacks?
Your assets are
You,
secure.
So what
You
does
get
that mean?
you get a bonus.
That's true. You get a bonus too. Yeah. What else? Basically, you
uh,
are safeguarding your company from
yeah,
database
yeah.
breaches, right? So you will be employed, right? That's the key, right? So if you have breaches, then what? Then we'll all go home, right? So that's right. So you have those policies. So how important the policies are, remember now you understand that, right? So everything comes back to the policies. How good the CISOs makes the policies, makes your systems that secure, and then makes you basically uh, less prone to ransomwares or data breaches. And also with policies, you will ensure you are compliant with all the policies, all the basically government frameworks, right? So government have some frameworks that like GDRP, HIPAA, PCI, DSS. Those are the government frameworks that you have to be compliant to. So you also have to keep that in mind, that when you're creating the policies, how can we be compliant with the government on this kind of things? So you have to put those in your policies as well, right? And then the policies also provide a clear road for the employees, right? Okay, this is the policies. We have to make sure that we are following all the policies. So basically, policies are mandatory. When you say it's mandatory in a company, if you don't follow the policy, basically on that basis, you can get fired by the company. So keep that in mind, folks. Make sense, everybody? Good.
Yep.
Okay, very good, very good. Excellent presentations today. Who wants to go one more last? Anybody? Share your presentation, brothers.
So
Excellent.
mine had Faisal also worked on mine.
Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's start our next session. I'm going to go over our next sessions quickly because you guys are doing really good. I'm really happy that you guys are doing such an excellent job. So let me share my screen now, and then let's go over quickly our questions, and then we'll go over one SQL injection attack as a demo. All of us together will do it, and then we'll go from there. I'm going to share my screen here. Share it. Let me know. Everybody can see my screen? Yes.
one more thing, I think Brother Zakir is also in our group, but he is not in the meeting, looks like.
Oh, okay. So maybe
Yeah,
he did not show up today. That's
yeah,
okay. Maybe just send him all the presentations and everything
yeah,
from
yeah.
today. Very good. So can you all see my screen? Please confirm, one person.
Yes.
Yes, okay, perfect. So I'm going to go ahead here. Display setting, settings. Okay. So today we'll cover business drivers, defining risk management, closing security gaps, adhering to compliance laws, implementing BIA, implementing BCP, implementing DRP, disaster recovery plan, assessing risk, vulnerability, threats and vulnerabilities, closing the information security gaps, adhering to compliance laws, keeping private data confidential. Okay. I don't know how much we can cover today, but we'll try to cover as much as we can. Okay. Let's go ahead with the main questions here. So just you can put your answers in the chat, and then we'll go from there. I want you all to basically put your answers in the chat, or you can just say it too. The main goal of hacker is to steal or compromise IT assets and potentially steal data. True or false? True or false? So basically,
I would say it's because.
false. Okay.
No, I would say true because they want to say steal data, but a hacker steal asset. A hacker, so stealing an asset would be like grabbing a computer and run, right?
So the main goal of the hacker. What is the goal of the hacker is to
I
steal or
think this
compromise
can be
IT
the main
assets.
goal.
Steal or compromise IT assets. Compromise too. So basically, it could be stealing or compromising.
So
Compromising means getting access to your server, your web server or database server.
it's true. Yeah, it's true.
So is it true? Yeah, the answer is true, brothers. So that's the main goal of a hacker.
I
And
think
then-
it's false. Don't you think the main goal can be to steal or compromise, but he can also be looking for money or for other things.
Yeah, that's what it is. So that's what it does, right, Subhan?
Yeah.
So basically, what will you do when you compromise the system? What will you do? Next step will be
You will pay
first
a
step is
ransom.
to first step is to compromise it. Then you can do a ransomware, right? So
Yeah.
that's their main goal. Yeah.
Okay.
Without compromising, you cannot go to the next step, right? So that's
Yeah.
So the second one is here is the second one. Which of the following terms best describe a person with a very little hacking skills? Remember, we talked about it. Very little hacking skills. Hacker, script kiddies, cracker, wannabe, all of the above. What is the answer? E. A hacker. Hacker has very small skills, brother. Surosh. Hacker is a highly skilled person, right?
D, wannabe.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay. What else? I want everybody to answer here in text messages. I
B.
want to see everybody's answer. Just put
D.
your answers in. D. Wannabe. Have you heard wannabe anywhere in our class before?
No, I don't think it's a professional word.
Okay. So
B
yeah,
can be the
the
answer.
correct answer is B, script kiddies. Remember we talked about script kiddies? Yes, that's the correct answer, folks. Okay, let's go to the next one. Which of the following is an example of social engineering? Everybody talked about social. I want everybody to answer this correct. SQL injection, XML injection, security design, impersonation, all of the above.
Impersonation.
I want everybody to answer. Everybody agrees, impersonation?
Yep.
Very good, very good. Excellent, folks. Let's move on. Which of the following best describes intellectual property? The items a business has copyrights, all patents owned by the business, the unique knowledge of a business processes, customer list.
E, all of the above.
E.
Everybody is in concern. E, good. Yes, it's E answer. Everybody's very good, very good. Which of the following impacts availability? Cross-site scripting, SQL injection, DDoS attack, packet sniffing, none of the above. Remember, we covered all of this. Impacts availability. Availability means your system is down.
DDoS, C.
See, everybody agrees, C?
Can
Yes.
you explain more about C?
So it's a DDoS attack, right? So basically what happens is a hacker, he tries to put some bots on your system so that your system goes down. So for example, right, you have a website, remember we discussed, and then your website capacity to hold only 1,000 people, 1,000 use customers at a time. And then the attacker, what he does is he just floods your website with 1,500 users. That way your website can handle it and your website goes down. That's called a DDoS attack. Okay,
Okay.
perfect. Which type of malware is a self-contained program that replicates and sends copies of itself to other computers, generally across a network? Is it a virus, worm, Trojan, Rocketeer, or cookie manipulator?
Or a virus?
Virus is basically, does virus replicate?
It grows in your computer, right?
Yeah, but does it replicates, not grows?
I would say Trojan, C.
No. Worm is the one that replicates itself.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. Make sure that you just go through those whenever you have time. Yeah. Next one is, which type of malware involves extorting the user or organization into paying money to release a decrypt key? Remember, we talked about this. So now the company has your data and they have encrypted that, and then basically they're asking for ransomware to give you guys the decryption key for the encrypted data. Whether it's a virus, Trojan, logical bond, crypto locker malware, your worst nightmare virus. Which one is that? Anybody? D, everybody agrees with D? Yep, perfect. That's the right answer. Crypto locker malware is the one where they can take your data and encrypt it. And then later on, once you give them the money, we can decrypt that data as a company. Very good, folks. Okay, so here we are with our session today. So quick question here. You want to just do the SQL injection attack first and then get into the slides, or you want to do the SQL attack injection, all of us together at the end? What do you all say?
I think we should do it at the end.
At the end? Everybody agrees? Yes?
Sounds good at the end.
Okay, perfect. Let's do that. So let's start our fourth week now, confidentiality. You all know what confidentiality is, right? Tools that enhance confidentiality. So the tools that enhance, we just discussed that: encryption software, identity and access management, multi-factor authentication. We already discussed that. Availability, right? Basically, tools that enhance availability is proper implementation of disaster recovery, right? So if there is a DDoS attack or DOS attack, then we should right away, bring our systems back, right? We should have a, um, what do you call that? Business continuity plan to get that system back up running as soon as possible. We'll maintain hardware device redundancy, right? We should have our systems, we should be redundant. Like if there is a attack at one server, then we should always have the backup server, which we can bring it up whenever, as soon as possible. That's what availability is. So what are business drivers, right? Business drivers are the key inputs and activities that drive the operation and financial results of the company. So basically, what are the business drivers? Business drivers could be cash, profits, assets, growth, and people. And our security posture to all the assets and everything are considered as business drivers. Common examples for business drivers are salespeople, number of stores, website traffic, and price of the product sold, units of products. These are all considered as business drivers. Okay. So risk management important to organization. What is the importance of risk management to the organization, right? So basically, we need to identify, assess, prioritize, and addressing the risk. is the core business driver, right? Necessary to ensure organization longevity. Why are we calling here longevity? Can somebody explain to me why we said to ensure organization's longevity?
Brand image.
No, longevity is what is longevity?
How long a corporation or business runs without.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So there is a direct correlation between the security and the longevity of the company, right? So basically, if you are having ransomware, if your customer data is getting leaked, then what happens? Remember, I said the other day, most of the companies, if they have any major um, data breach, what happens to the company?
Reputation goes down.
And what else did I say?
Uh, and
You lose the client.
Longevity, brand image.
Basically, in case of most of the companies, if there is a major breach, they go out of business. Forget about brand and everything. You're completely out of business. You're gone. A lot of companies have died down like that. Then they file the bankruptcy and then they go out of business. It's that serious. That's why it is here says that this is a key business driver with longevity. It is directly related with your, if you don't have like major breaches, that means your company's survival rate is much larger. And then if like, especially the small scale businesses, um, for example, right,
is
if a bank,
is
go
there
ahead.
any example, recent example for that?
Yes, we can find examples. I'll file examples and show you guys.
What about the example Mr. Hassan was giving about the Atlanta? Is that correlated to
Did they
this?
go out of business?
I don't remember.
Yeah. Check on the net and see how there should be
Okay.
some examples. How many, you know, how many this went out. Uh, I'm pretty sure there are thousands of companies that went out of business. Roughly 20% of small and medium businesses are forced to permanently close with a serious cyber attack, right? Large companies, they don't do because they have a lot of, so if there is example, there's Travel EX that went out of business. So you can do research too. So like that, due to time, I just, uh, if I find more, I'll share with the slides with you next week. But you can also do research on that. There's a lot of businesses that go out, like especially the small and medium sized businesses, they run out of business because of the, see, if there is a major uh, data breach. So, and risk management activities should align with the organization's strategic goal, right? Right? Whatever the organization's strategic goal is. Can somebody give me an example of what is the strategic goal of the company? So, for example, right, if go ahead, brother.
I was just gonna say to, for example, to increase their profits.
Every company is to like most of the corporate companies, they want a profit, right? Strategic goal. What is the strategy?
Like
Make
last class you told us about those computers that were like with the formula you told us, like they were going down every year. Like to prevent that, that can be a strategic goal.
Yeah, very good, very good. Right.
means the goal is to have your system to be more secure as much as you can make it secure by analyzing the risk and mitigating the risk.
Yeah. So they could be, that's also fine, but they could be like, uh, like for example, right, we are all CEOs of different companies, so we need to strategize our goal. Okay, my goal is to make sure I have 100% customer satisfaction rates. I don't want any customer that comes to my business should be unhappy with me, right? That is one of the strategic goals you can have. Uh, Another brother, he will say, okay, my goal is next 10 years, I want to be in the top 10 list, right? That is a strategic goal your company has, right, brother? So, uh, and another brother, he can say, okay, maybe my strategic goal is to make sure that I am 24/7, 365 days operational. My business should never go down. That is my strategic goal. Okay. So based on your strategic goals, right? So for example, if you say, I want my revenue to increase by 2026, my revenue should increase $1 billion. So now your strategic goal is to make more money, $1 billion more, right? Now so now you cannot put $1 billion in security, right? So even if as a CISO you go and tell them like, okay, this will cost me $1 billion, but you know you don't. So if you don't know your strategic goal, then you can go and tell them like, I need $1 million. But now you know the strategic goal here, that the company is trying to make $1 billion. They're not going to invest this much money in the cybersecurity, right? So you have to make sure you adhere to the organization. You should align with the organization for the strategic goals. And then one company will say that, okay, I want 100%. The strategic goal is I want to be 100% online, right? Then you can go and say, okay, these are the controls I want to put in place for you to be 100% online, right? Then they'll say, okay, fine, I'll do that. Make sense, folks?
So suppose
Mhm.
in the recent case, because of AI and artificial intelligence, lot
Mhm.
of companies are laying off people. If they set a goal that I have to cut the cost by
Mhm.
10% by identifying the people to be laid off, that is their strategic goal. Fine, so that they have cost cutting and they have more revenue. Fine.
Mhm.
So how it will map to cybersecurity? Will it map to cybersecurity?
It depends, right? So if they are trying on cutting folks, like, so your cybersecurity team is like 10 people, right? And they
Yeah.
come and they'll tell you, okay, from cybersecurity department, we think 5 people, we want to cut off 5 people. Then as a CISO, you'll sit and you identify what will be the drawbacks, what will be the challenges you'll be facing with five less people, right? And then you go and you tell your team, okay, guys, go ahead, fine, go ahead and cut those people, but these are the challenges we'll have once they are gone. Then
Okay.
it will be the CEOs who will be basically saying, okay, that's fine, we will let that. So then you'll have it in a written statement saying that by laying off this many people, will be this much insecure, and we are okay to take this security challenges. Then you go ahead and make it that way. Make sense, brother?
Okay.
And then
Okay.
otherwise the company will say, okay, fine, let's keep all 10 people in cybersecurity. Let's just get something out from finance or from development or from marketing, right? Because we know the core people we need it, right? So that's how you
Okay.
can. So that's why it's very important. You should align with your company strategic goals. Okay.
Okay.
This can be positive or negative. We can see that positive and negative risks always everywhere, right? So interaction among risk, threats, and vulnerabilities. We have discussed this. We'll be discussing basically everything revolves around risk, threat, and then CIA trial in company in information security. So now basically get into a habit of always just hearing this term at work to CIA and threats, vulnerabilities all the time. Okay. So a threat is an opportunity to exploit a vulnerability. Risk, threat into vulnerability is risk. So you always know that. And then with risk comes a cost, right? When there is an exploit that happens, the exploit is always have a cost. Like for example, right? Once your data is breached, that's the exploit happened. And then the impact will be cost. Basically, the hacker now he's not used so much time and resources to just breach your data and then keep it or delete it, right? So the next steps will be he will be asking for money for it, right? That is always whenever there is an exploit, of the result in an vulnerability result in an impact, that will always have a cost associated to that. So remember that. So relationship between BIA and CPC. So basically business impact analysis, business continuity plan, disaster recovery plan. This, your company should always have this. You don't, as a CISO, you will not be creating this. This will be basically created by different team, right? There will be business analysis team, analytics team. There will be disaster recovery team. There will be business continuity team. They could be inside your information security team itself, or they could be in some other departments too. But you have to work with these people, and then you have to create the proper policies and procedures and put them in place, so that whenever those are needed, we should be able to implement those. Okay. And let's see what is business impact analysis, right? BIA recovery goals and requirements, recovery point objective, right? The target state of a recovery data that allows an organization to continue normal processes, the maximum amount of data loss that is acceptable. So I know you are here, most of you are in data analytics, and you have worked in programming and database and all that, right? So basically data recovery point is saying that how much data can you lose. But again, it depends, right? So for example, if you are Amazon, right? So if you are Amazon and your server goes down at like now you're taking it back up. Mhm.
No, come again, the question.
So basically, right? So you have your own company. Like for example, you are the I will say basically uh, you are the BIA manager, okay? And you are designing the policy, business impact analysis manager, okay? And then you are designing a policy where you have to put the recovery point objective for Amazon, okay? You are the BIA office manager for Amazon, and you have to put the recovery point objective of your data. So once if your database is shut down, or right, so basically, or hacked or whatever it is, and you want to get back to a recovery point objective, what will that recovery point objective be?
See, it depends. If you have
No, I'm not.
system, uh-huh.
No, I'm talking about, it's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
different now. I'm
No,
talking
no, no, no.
about Amazon. Amazon
Objective.
is hundreds of millions of people every second doing transaction on Amazon. Okay. That's why I took a particular name, Amazon now. So what will be your RPO there in that
You
point?
have to give the data when it failed. That is the target state should be the state where it was failed.
Exactly. So it would be like in seconds, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Now I'll give you
Can you
an
explain that? Like, what do you mean by that?
Okay, so so basically what brother is saying, right? So because you have customers 24/7 on Amazon, right? And they will be basically placing orders and returning stuff and all the time activity going on, right? So it's highly critical data. So company needs to get the data point in time. So they should be like about maybe 1 second or less than a second data recovery loss should be there. So you cannot have a big data recovery loss there. To give you another example, right? Uh, Subhan, you have
Sorry, like you mean the second it happens, you mean that?
yeah.
Okay,
So
okay.
for example, right? For example, the data breach happened at 11:49 p.m. Okay.
Okay.
But when you recover the data, you should recover the data at least 11:48 p.m. Make
You
sense?
mean 1 second back?
Maybe 1 second or the same time too. I'm just giving you an example. Or
But how will they
11:48.
know if it, I mean, it can be only it happens? How can you go 1 second back? That's my question.
Have you heard, have you worked on databases before?
No.
No, right? So that's why you
Yeah.
won't understand. So
Okay.
basically what happens, right? Whenever you go on the website, that data is persisted to a database. Okay.
Okay.
So database is constantly taking backups. Okay. There is like,
Mhm.
full backup, there is log backup, full backup, log backups are, so depending on your strategy, second, they can take a backup
Okay.
of
I
your
get.
systems, right? So
Yeah.
when your system crash, and then when you recover those backups, you can get the full backup, you can get the differential backup, and you can get the log backups till the last second that happened.
Okay.
That's
Yes.
what it means. Okay. So in case of Amazon, you might have to get till the crash point. But for example, right, uh, there is a company, there is just basically, there is no sensitive information, nothing, it's just, people are chatting nonsense,
Okay.
nothing big information. At that point, uh, uh, what will be your RPO? That could be, okay, if we lose 1 week data, that's fine. Or we take, so again, remember, anything you do, there is lots of cost associated to it, right?
Yes.
You're taking daily full backups, right? There is a cost. You're taking differential backup. There is cost associated. They're taking log backups. There is cost associated to it. So you are just basically a very small, website. You put it in, and then few people on that website, they go and then they just gossip on it, or just put, some, garbage there. There's not much information there, right? So you take once a week backup of that, and because it's too expensive for you, you can take every day back. I'm just giving a scenario, right?
Yeah.
So your RPO will be there 1 week, right? You'll be okay if I lose
Yeah.
1 week data, that's fine, because it's not what data,
Yes.
spending
Yes.
so much money on the backups, right? So
Yeah.
it differs between your basically what company you're working for and all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always remember, any activity you do, any controls you put in place, there's always cost
Okay.
associated to it, a
Yes.
lot of cost. So based on those costs, you have to set your RPOs, you have to set your RTOs, maximum allowed time in which to recover functions, right? So if you look
Mm.
at RTO, right, RTO is directly related to your basically SLAs. So what are your SLAs with your company? So when you sign a contract with another company, you will sign that, tell them that, okay, your this website will be unavailable at the max 20 minutes or
Yeah.
30 minutes. That's it. So your RTO will be directly associated to your SLAs. So your company SLAs, you tell your customers that we can only go down to 30 minutes. After that, we cannot. That means if it goes more than 30 minutes, then there'll be fines. The
Yeah.
customers can fine you, or customers can also exit out of the contract because you are not meeting the SLAs. Okay. So you have to keep all
Y-
this things in mind. Make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. Yeah. It does. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I got.
Okay. Okay, folks, I know we have covered a lot of stuff so far. Let's take a 15-minute break, and then we'll come back and we'll continue. Yeah, please make sure to ask questions, folks. Okay, so we were talking about RPO, RTO, we discussed that. And then also we need to make sure that business recovery prerequisites to recover. So the prerequisites are you have data backups, then you will not be able to restore any data. Where are you going to restore data from, right? So we need to, requirements are almost same things too. Okay. So business continuity plan, we should always have a written plan for a structured response to an event that results in an interruption to critical business and business activities or functions, right? So just about 2 weeks ago in my company, we did the BCP. So basically, what we do is we have that business continuity plan designed by the business continuity team, and that manages this plan, and they execute the plan. And then once the plan is executed, they get the response, and then they fill out the report response. Oh, we had a glitch on this thing, so by that glitch, and then make sure that that doesn't happen in our next. So you do your basically follow up on that, right? If there is any issues with your business continuity plan, you need to make sure that you basically resolve those issues. If that happens in real time, then this is kind of like we do tabletop exercises every year for BCP, and we also do incident response tabletop exercises and incident response, BCP, business continuity. Yeah, these are the two ones we make sure we do twice a year. So every company is different. They do once a year, they do quarterly or whatever. And also some of those teams, they basically actually run a functional test. So in my company, we discussed that earlier too. What's the difference between doing a tabletop exercise and doing a functional test?
A functional test can be more structured and have real life examples.
In tabletop, what we do, we call or physically scan.
Very good. X. Yeah, that's the exact definition of it. Very good. So Sarosh, right? Yeah. Yeah. So basically, tabletop exercises, we just do it on the piece of paper, right? And functional test is literally we go on the ground and then we kick the um, basically we do a actual test, make sure that, okay, for example, right, we go and we basically fail the database, and then we take the backup. First we start taking the backups, just to give you an example of a database, right? So first you take the backups, and then you basically shut down your database literally through a SQL injection or whatever it is, and then you restore the backup and make sure it is working. It's not in live, but it's a test. So then you are confident that. And tabletop exercises, basically you'll say, okay, we'll take the backup every day at 7 a.m. Okay, and then if it fails, we'll take this backup. If this happens, we'll do this. If we haven't, but it's just on the paper. But functional test is basically literally you just go in, you take the backup, you fail the system, you restore the system. That's functional test. Make sense, everybody? So you need to have both there in BCP and in elements of complete BCP is right here. Statements defining the policy, standard, procedures, and guidelines for deployment. Right? Can somebody tell me what are the differences between policy, standards, procedures, and guidelines? This is very important, folks. So as a cyber security or info security engineer, you should know exactly what are the differences between policies, standards, procedures, and guidelines, and which ones are mandatory and which ones are not mandatory. Okay. So in our next class, this write down as homework to folks. Just define what is a policy, what are standards, what are procedures, and what are guidelines. Okay. And which ones are basically so I'll give you a example. Is basically policy is an overview of like a high level, like um, um, the high level document, very high level document. Standard is basically, again, it splits into the system. So for example, right, in a policy, just to give you analogy here, right? In a policy, you'll say all the company employees should have a laptop. That's it, the policy is. Standard is basically all the company's employees should have a Dell laptop. Okay, that is a standard. Procedure is all the company employees should have Dell laptop. The configuration should be 200 GB, like, 25, like whatever, the RAM should be this size, database, like what are the applications that needs to be installed on those laptops for the company, like for example, Outlook should be installed when we hand over the laptop to the user, right? And we need to have some of our company tools that needs to be installed. We need to have the anti-malware installed, antivirus installed, right? So those are the things that needs to be installed. That is all covered in the procedure. Okay. Guidelines is, again, basically it will say if you want to install antivirus, do this things. If you want to install Outlook, do this things. Okay. So that's our guidelines. Make sense, everybody? And policies and standards are basically mandatory. I'm not sure. I think procedures are also mandatory, but double check, folks. But guidelines, I know for sure they are not mandatory. They are optional. If you want to use those guidelines, you can use it. If you have a better solution, you can deploy it that way. But these are the guidelines given by the company. But if you don't use those guidelines, no harm. But policy is you have to make sure that everybody has a laptop. Like company says you have to use your company laptop. You cannot do company work on your personal laptop. If you're doing on your personal laptop, that means you're in the violation of company policy. If the company finds out, then they can fire you because of the violation of company policy. Make sense, everybody? Okay, perfect. Project team members with defined roles, responsibilities, and accountability. Right? BCP should have all of this information should be there. Team members should know exactly what their roles are, what are their responsibilities, what is their accountability. Go ahead, brother Safdar.
Yes, sir. Question is how the policies and the standards, they all fit.
I'm not following your question. Can you give me
How the policies and standards fit together in one box? Different policies are different and standards are different. Is it work that way or no?
Yeah, there could be hundreds of policies. For every item, you can put a policy in place. And you can put so basically you have a policy. Your policy will say laptop policy. Okay. Laptop policy will have saying that, okay, everybody should have a laptop. All the company members should use only company laptops. That's the policy, right? The related standard for that policy will be everybody should have a Dell laptop. That will be the standard for the policy. Okay. So you'll have basically laptop policy, laptop standard, laptop procedure, laptop guidelines. You'll have password, again, different policy. Password policy, password standard, password procedure, password guidelines. So for example, right now, laptop policy is Dell. So you said you have every company employee should have a laptop, right? That is a policy, and the standard says only Dell, because if you have same thing, you'll get a better discount, right? If you go and tell Dell, okay, I want 20,000 laptops, they'll definitely give you a deal, right? But like people cannot go into different laptops, and that's why you create this kind of policies. This is all coming from top level. Policies are always created at the architecture level, folks. Like security engineers and all those folks, they don't write policies. Policies are always coming from top down. Okay. And then, so for example, now you have a laptop policy, you'll have a separate password policy. Password policy will say, okay, all the users' passwords should rotate every 90 days. Everybody should use multi-factor authentication, right? That will be your policy. The standard will come and say, so policy will say all the users need to make sure they rotate password. That's it. They don't give time or anything. Standard will come and say, okay, you have to have 90-day time. Procedure will come and say, you have to do it this way. multi-factor authentication. What kind of then procedure will say, okay, what kind of a multi-factor authentication? Do you need to have a phishing resistant multi-factor authentication or without phishing resistant multi-factor authentication, right? So those are the things that are given in procedure then. And then guidelines will say, okay, these are the steps you need to put turn on the multi-factor. You go to Azure, you go to IAM, you go to policy, you create a policy and select this policy. Everything will be given in the guidelines document. Make sense, Professor Safdar? So you can have hundreds of policies in a company.
But as a security personnel, where we fit in that standards?
That's a great point. Very good. Very good.
Obviously,
point.
you make it clear, so the question
Yes,
will come.
yes,
Obviously,
yes. That's
where
the
we
million-dollar question. Yes. So now your job is to make sure everybody is implementing those policies, and you put a control in place. Okay. Now you have. That's why you put the antivirus. And then your policy is, so let's go to the password policy now, right? Where the security will come into place for the password policy. Now you scan your systems for the passwords, and then you will get a report, and then you will say, Brother Safdar, he's good, his system is good, all the configurations are set up properly. Whether Sarosh, okay, here on his system, I don't see multi-factor authentication. That multi-factor authentication is not turned on. You'll get a report when you scan that system, right? And then you take that report and then you go to network group and tell them, hey guys, on Sarosh system, he doesn't have a multi-factor authentication turned on. This is against the policy. Turn it on because he's the control owner. Then he'll turn it on. Then you scan it again. Make sure that the system, all the configuration, whatever the policy is saying, you have to make sure that those controls are implemented related to those policies and procedures. Does that help, Safdar?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Sorry, I took time.
No. That's a great question. Yeah, you're going in deep. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So basically, our job as InfoSec is to make sure all these policies are implemented and all the controls. And we also need to make sure that we also identify the gaps, if there is any gaps. So for example, right, we have for our IAM, so we have created our own scripts to basically like identity and access management is little more basically in depth. So I will not explain to you by identity. Maybe by the end, I will explain to you what all the things are involved in Azure cloud and on-prem and all that portions, because that team is under me too. So it's a little complicated, but to give you a simple analogy, I'll say like this, right? So for example, your company policies for Windows servers is basically, the policy says we need to follow STIG benchmarks for all the Windows 2019 servers. Okay, perfect. Now you take your Qualys tool, okay, and then you scan all the servers, and then you find any vulnerabilities. You go to the server owners, right, and you tell them like, okay, these are the vulnerabilities on those servers. These servers are not compliant against the STIG, right? And then basically you tell the control owners to fix those controls, and basically then they fix the controls, and then you scan every day or weekly scans, whatever your company does, right? And then you create reports. So reporting, continuous monitoring and reporting is very critical to the systems too. So basically how you do the reporting, how you extract the data, I'll show in future classes too. So we'll be like doing some demos too on that. So I'll share with you exactly, how you can implement those controls. And also what you need to do is, for example, now, right? Now you're using Qualys tool to implement the STIG compliances on your Windows Server 2019 images, right? Images is basically, you know what image I'm talking about. Image is basically you take the image and then you deploy the image to get the server created in cloud, right? So now you identified that Qualys is not scanning all of those required stick policies that has to be scanned, right? So for now, you identified that Qualys is not scanning to make sure the stick, one of the stick compliance policy is basically, for example, the password should be 12-digit long, okay? But Qualys is not scanning that policy to make sure that all the passwords for the servers are 12-digit long. What does that mean? Can somebody tell me what does that mean?
Just
So
can you
basically,
just repeat, just repeat.
so
Not
basically,
following,
okay,
not
okay,
following the company standard or set guidelines or policies by Carlos.
yes. So basically, my question here is, right, for example, stick compliance says you have to have on your server, you have to have a 12-digit password, okay? And you are scanning your you're doing your configuration scans using Qualys. Qualys is a tool that you can use to scan your vulnerabilities and your configuration. Okay, we'll go in tools later on, right? So for example, now you assume that we are using Qualys and we are doing our compliance scans, but you found out that Qualys tool or application, you can call it, is not scanning for 12-digit password. It's doing, like, for example, there is a list of 12 things that stick compliance says to do for the server to be safe. Okay, one of the 12 things is you need to have a password with 12-digit. Okay, but when you run your scanner, you identify that it's only scanning for 11 things, but it is not scanning for 12 things. That is, the password should be 12-digit long. What does that mean?
So it means that Qualys is configured for 12-digit password, and it is trying to scan the length that it should be 12-digit, but it is not finding that length. So it goes into error, and it remains that means like this is not available or something like that, they can say.
So let me tell you one. Okay, you have a server, and the policy says you have to have a stick compliance on that. So your configuration should be stick compliant. Okay,
Yes, yes.
the server configuration should be stick compliance. One of the policy in that. So the stick compliance is basically bunch of system administrator. He goes in and he looks at the list of the stick, and then he puts all the 11 controls in place, except he forgets to put that he does not turn on the 12-digit password. He'll say only 8-digit instead of 12-digit. Okay, makes sense
Okay.
so far?
Yeah, yeah.
Right, so in this case the server is not compliant for that route, because the stick is saying you have to be 12-digit compliance, but the system administrator, he just put it as compliance should be 8-digit. So if you put an 8-digit password, you should be able to access the system. Okay, makes sense,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
Everybody following with me so far?
yeah.
Okay, so now you have 5,000 servers in your company like that. Okay, so they don't put like go and put on every server. They create a script and then they deploy the script on all 5,000 servers. Okay, so all the 5,000 servers now are deployed with a policy that is not compliant with STIG, correct? Instead of
Yes.
12-digit password, all the servers have now 8-digit passwords, right?
Yeah.
So the job of a security engineer is to basically scan all those 5,000 servers and make sure they are compliant with with the strict policies, all 12 policies, correct?
Yes.
Everybody good so far?
Yeah.
Makes sense? Yeah. So now your company has selected Qualys as its tool, security tool that will check to make sure all the servers are compliant with STIG. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
But now Qualys has a bug in it. It only checks for 11 compliances, the 12th compliances, that 12th compliant policy, 12th control, that is basically everybody should have a 12-digit password. It doesn't do that. It only checks for 11 controls. So now when you run the scan, what happens?
So in this
All the
case,
5,000 servers will pass the scan, right? It will
yeah, but
say everything passed. But there is a bug in Qualys, right? That basically out of 12, it only scans for 11 policies and it doesn't scan for the 12th policy.
so it will be treated as a vulnerability with policy exception.
Brother, first you
Hmm?
need to identify that, right? Now your
Yes.
report is saying they are all compliant. Then how are you going to? So we'll add
So 12 policies to be implemented. Fine.
exactly.
They
So
are
that is the
only
gap.
scanning 11. That policy will go as
Ah,
exception.
yes, yes. So that is a gap there, right? So now your Qualys is only scanning for 11 policies and it is missing one critical policy, and it's saying that it's giving you a false report saying that all the 5,000 servers are compliant, which all the 5,000 servers are not compliant in this case. So that is what basically security engineer's job is, to also verify whether the scanners are compliant or not. So basically one of the job is to make sure that the security engineer's jobs is to make sure, like brother Safdar was asking, right? So that's why I'm saying that one of the main important critical job of the security engineer is also to make sure that we are compliant with all the policies if there is anything missing. So in this case, we know Qualys is missing that. So basically, we will either use a different tool or will add one more control to it. Maybe you'll uh, set up a Python script or PowerShell script, and it goes and checks for this policy and returns you data saying that, okay, now if you have a separate policy created now, for example, now you identified that, okay, Qualys is not doing its job properly, so we might have to add one more control in place, that is PowerShell script. So basically you will run the Qualys for the 11 policies, and for the 12th policy you'll run your PowerShell script, and that PowerShell script will say, okay, now all those 5,000 servers, they are not compliant with 12-digit password. Now you know that, oh, now I know this is not compliant. Then you'll go to the infrastructure team. They'll tell them, hey, change this from 8 to 12. Now you'll become compliant. Make sense, everybody?
Yeah. So in this case, when we are writing PowerShell script, we can also identify out of 5,000 servers which are not compliant. We can do that also. Fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So we
Yeah.
need to
Yeah.
have right kind of tools. First, you
Yeah.
need to understand, right,
Yeah.
where the gaps are. So this was like gap identifying, right? So what are the gaps? So we'll cover that in the future too. So one of the main tasks, so that is more difficult than identifying gaps. Sometimes it's very difficult to identify. That's how vulnerabilities come. Hackers exploit the vulnerabilities. We don't know those gaps, and then there'll be vulnerabilities left, and then hackers go and exploit those vulnerabilities. Make sense, everybody?
Yeah.
Perfect. So disaster recovery plan is also BIA plus BCP equals to disaster recovery plan. DPR recovers resources after a disaster. Part of BCP ensures restoration of resources for BCP, identify events, damage, critical resources. It does all of these things. So I'm going to put the slides, and I'm not going to go over everything because of the time limitations, folks. So read the slides. This goes in very good this thing. What is the difference between BCP and DPR? So BCP does not specify how to recover from disaster, only interruption. And in general, an interruption is a minor event. So BCP is for interruptions, and DPR is basically, it's if it's a disaster, big disaster, then we use disaster recovery plan. Okay, so those are the two differences between BCP and DPR. BCP is just interruption, and these disasters an event that affects multiple business processes for an extended period of time. That is called disaster. Okay. So that's the difference between those two. Threat analysis identify threats to critical resources. Okay, threat analysis is basically will also be part of doing the threat analysis, right? What are the, basically threat analysis is one of the best way of doing threat analysis is threat modeling. I don't know how many of you are familiar with threat modeling. There is again standards. Microsoft have its own standards for threat model. We can follow any standards. My company, we follow mostly Microsoft and PASTA. Those are the two standards for threat modeling we use. I think we will go over threat modeling in a bit, like in a fifth or sixth session. We'll talk about threat modeling too at that time. Consider types of disasters and potential damages. Common threat includes, these are all the things: sabotage, cyber attacks, earthquakes. You all know this, right? So just review those. Another thing is document like impact scenario based on potential threat. Focus on wide range disaster for comprehensive planning. So you can just look into this impact scenarios. What are the impact scenarios? Here it will show. I'm not going to because of the time. Recovery documentation, document business and technical recovery requirement post analysis. Basically, you have to document too, right? Anything once you are done with it. So you have to document and share that. What was the damage? Next time how we can prevent it. All those things will be shared with the senior management most of the time. What are the asset information must be in BCP for disaster recovery team. So always we need to have the asset information, right? Asset information includes inventory of facilities and IT assets, right? Assets also includes the facilities. So, you have like multiple offices in different states or different countries. You have to have the inventory of the alternate office facility list, contact details for partners, vendors. That's also under assets, right? Disaster recovery team may contact team member contacts. That's also, for example, disaster recovery team is of 10 people, right? They need to have the list of all those 10 people, where we can find them, their phone numbers, their home address, everything, so that in case of alternative phone numbers, all those things, right? Critical business functions and required IT resources, backed up data retrieval procedures. So basically, where are you backing the data? How do we restore the data? Those kind of things. All that information should be included in asset information list for a disaster from the disaster recovery perspective. Okay, IT recovery procedures and manual solutions. What are the IT recovery procedure? Recovery time objective. We talked about it. RTO and steps to achieve those. So these are basically that are the important things that we need to have before any disaster recovery happens. If there is a disaster recovery, then you are not running, okay, where did that, what office that happened? Who was the disaster recovery team? I don't know who the team is, or that, what are the critical functions the company needs? Where are the backups? How can find the backups? You just can't be running around and chasing people and chasing facilities and all that. You should, as a disaster recovery team, you should always have this information and more. Obviously, there's other things, and specific to every company, there's the changes, but these are the standard ones. Any questions so far, folks? And every company should have a disaster recovery documentation and disaster recovery plan and process in place, because you never know when you will have a disaster in the company. Disaster could be from anything. It's not just not the cyber attack, right? It could be flood, it could be fire, it could be earthquake, and those are, those things can happen. So every team should have it. Again, train all personnel on proper disaster response, respond to disaster before pursuing recovery, ensure everyone's safety is top priority. Like Basically, when we say everyone's safety, what am I referring here to everyone safety? Anybody?
The employees,
Anybody?
employees.
Theoretically, it is correct, but technically, I think, they prefer something else than employed. Now, employees don't have that respect in the companies.
They
Is that-
prefer more on artificial intelligence.
yeah, exactly, exactly. AI is the best employee now. Uh, so moving data in center involves numerous details, required careful planning and all that. So just go through all this, folks, bullet points. If you have any questions, bring it up in our next week class. So basically, disaster recovery plan, if you look at this is how you'll have hot sites, warm sites, cool sites, mobile sites. So again, it depends on how critical your system is, and it depends on how much money you have, and it depends on your company. So if hot site is basically facility with environment, utilities, hardware, software, and data that closely mirror the original data center. So basically, if you have a data center in Alpharetta with your servers running and everything, you will replicate the same data center in Chicago. For example, I'm giving an example. That is, if the data center gets caught fire, you can immediately the in Chicago, right? So, but that's most expensive one. Least switchover time, right? It is the most with the least switchover time, right? So basically, if it's a your company has critical data like Amazon, right? I'm pretty sure Amazon always have a hot site. They cannot afford maybe a warm site too, but I'll say it will be hot site. Right? Warm site facility with environment, utilities, and basic computer hardware. So warm site is basically you will have the environment, like you'll have a data center and servers, everything uh, sitting there, just the servers and all that. Less expensive than a hot site, requires more time to load operating system, software, data, and configuration. So basically, uh, you'll have a basic computer hardware, but you have to basically load everything on it, and then you fire it up. That's warm site. Cold site is basically facility with basic environment, utilities, but no infrastructure component. So basically, you will have a basically data center, brick and brick and mortar. That's it. So you don't even have any servers or anything in there. You have just space there. Then you have to bring your servers, and then get that. And but it's the least expensive option. Okay, and then mobile site too. Trailers with necessary environment utilities that can operate as a warm site or a cold site. So you can have also a mobile site. So it all again depends on what kind of a business you are in, how much money you have, how much you are willing to spend. So this based on those, you can have hot sites, warm site, cold site, and mobile site. Any questions on this, folks? Good. Okay, let's go. So common comparison again, I'm giving hot warm site here. Yes, no. So cost is basically high, warm site is medium. All of this you can look into this. DRP test, right? So basically, what are the disaster recovery plan test? Our checklist. We discussed the checklist, correct? Uh, you have everything, like you have to know. So can somebody give me an example of the checklist for DRP? We just discussed it 2 slides above.
Disaster recovery, if there is some unwanted thing happens, like
No,
attack
checklist.
or
What are the
checklist.
prerequisites you need to have before you go into disaster recovery mode?
So you should have exact configuration, whatever is in production, to be in the disaster site where your whole servers are running. Fine, you have replica of that. So your configuration should be same. Plus,
Okay.
you mentioned about time of recovery, and there are 3-4 points you mentioned. That has to be satisfied. But how much time it will take? You should have SLA, and you should have a point of recovery, All those things you should is the prerequisite for a disaster recovery. And how much
Absolutely.
time it will take. Fine.
Yes. Any other thoughts, folks?
Because you want to have disaster recovery place where you get exactly data from where the disaster happened in production system.
Yes, yes, very good. Any other points? Anybody else? What other things we need to have in a checklist? Go ahead, Pratham. Yes. What else?
Also, one thing always you should have a plan that your production will go into DRP every year or 6 months. It all depends on the system. Fine. That planning should be there, and then as per that plan, that your system will be in DRP stage from this week to this week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and it will seamless to user. User will be still happening, and you should have also a plan to once you are in DRP, if you come back to production, it should be all the data and everything should be same there.
Perfect. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, definitely. Here are some of the examples of checklist here, right? Checklist, the simplest type of DRP test and all that. And structure walkthrough is similar to checklist test, but the DRP team uses role plan to simulate a disaster and evaluate the DRP effectiveness, right? So this is basically structure walkthrough is a tabletop exercise. Simulation test is basically, you need to do this once or twice a year, all of these things, right? So simulation test is also basically more realistic walkthrough. So basically they stimulated. Parallel test is again, parallel test evaluates the effectiveness of the DRP by enabling full processing capabilities, right? And then interpret interruption test. Full interruption test is basically a functional test. This is the only complete test. Full interruption test interrupts the primary data center and transfer processing capabilities to the alternative sites. In this case, right? Disaster recovery is basically, so basically if you have a server in Alpharetta, you shut down the server in Alpharetta and you transfer it to Chicago. That's what basically you literally do it in a full interruption test itself. But this is the most expensive one. And most of the companies, like medium to even large scale companies, they don't do this interruption test. But especially in government, they do. Is very critical, right? So and they have the money to do those kind of tests. So and some of the commercial companies, they do it too, but not like small scale and medium scale companies don't.
Yeah, sometimes what happens is that you have a very large system, and one system is integrated to other is integrated to other. So in that case, what happens if one of the system is not capable to go to disaster, or there is some issues, or it wants to have uninterrupted, then we make exception of that system for DRP, and we follow all other system for DRP test.
Absolutely, you're right. Yeah, completely makes
So
sense.
that system will be still in production, but other system can be in DRP, and it will run together.
Yeah, definitely, brother. Very good points. Yeah, assigning risks, threats, and vulnerabilities, right? Assigning risk, threats, or of the critical prioritize risks to focus on necessary remedies, right? So always we need to make sure that we cannot mitigate all the vulnerabilities, right? Basically, we need to assess risk, threats, and vulnerabilities of critical resources, right? So for example, right, basically you have a web server, okay, and that web server is basically hosting your commercial website, okay, and you have one test machine just sitting somewhere. It's not even basically in your network, right? It's off network, sitting in a test environment, right? And then you found same vulnerability on the web server that is hosting your web application, and there is a test server that's not even on your network, right? And then it's just sitting in the testing lab. So basically your priority should be to immediately fix the web server that is hosting your commercial website, right? And then maybe if you have time and if you think it's worth basically, so for example, right, to fix those vulnerabilities, it will cost you $1,000. I'm just giving a number here, right? Immediately you will put those $1,000 to make sure all the vulnerabilities and threats are removed from your web server that is hosting your web application, right? But you have a web server, right? And you pay like $50 for that web server running on the test side, and then you want to spend $1,000 to mitigate that risk, or you can just basically absorb that risk, right? So it's your company's policy. You have to decide. You're just for a piece of asset that costs $50, and to fix that asset you have to spend $1,000. Is your company willing to do that or not? If your company is not willing to do that, you just put it in a document saying that, yeah, we have identified this vulnerability here, but since we think this is not worth fixing because it's low hanging fruit, it's just sitting on in our test environment, it's not even up and running, and it doesn't have any PII data or anything, even if a hacker hacks it, but there is nothing he can find in there, right? So in that case, you'll put in, we accept this threat from the system. Make sense, everybody? So you have to prioritize your risk.
Also for DRP, you have to take care of upward system and downward system.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's very
Yes.
important. That should be in your checklist.
Yeah, absolutely. It has to be. Yeah, good point. Okay. So this is where the closing the information security gaps comes in, right? Despite all best efforts, no collection of security controls is perfect. There are always no controls, right? The difference between the security controls you have in place and the controls you need to address all vulnerabilities is called the security gap. So basically, that's what I was explaining earlier, where this is one of the challenging portion of security engineering. I should say this is the most challenging portion of the security engineering, to find those security gaps. So basically, what we just discussed about, we have a tool. It is identifying 11 controls, and 12th controls it misses it, and we need to identify that which control it's missing, and then we need to come up with some kind of a security gap. That is the PowerShell script we mentioned, right? Like we'll have another PowerShell script to give you analogy. It's all about analogy there, right? So that PowerShell script is going to come and basically fill that gap. So identifying gap analysis, a valuable tool to help ensure you are satisfying your organization security policy is a gap analysis. So you should always be doing gap analysis. You just can't blindly say, okay, we haven't deployed this security tool, it will take care of everything. No. Sometimes even security tools or there is, I just gave you an example. There could be thousands of examples like that with security gaps in your assets, in your systems, right? So we need to basically look at those gaps and then try to fill those gaps. And if we don't have any controls, then we should basically uh, put it as a known issue and then tell them that, hey, this is the gap and this is the cost for fixing it. And we have brought this up to our senior management and they said it's okay. We can take the risk on this, or fix it. You identify the tools to fix it. Make sense, everybody? And always gap analysis activity should be ongoing. It's a continuous activity. You just say, okay, now I found it, that's it, I'm done. There is no more gap analysis. So you should always, every day, you should be doing gap analysis, or maybe once a week, or sometimes there is teams who will be doing and then nowadays, like you said, we are using a lot of companies are using AI to do the gap analysis. And we are also in the process of implementing some AI tools to do the gap analysis. Any questions there, folks? Everybody good so far? Yes. Steps to perform gap analysis, gather policy, standard procedures, and guideline documents, review and assess implementation of this document. I think we talked a lot about gap analysis earlier too. Just to read through this, if you have any questions, ask me. These are the steps or there could be many other steps too. I'm just documenting, some of the basic ones here. Okay, determine cause of the gap analysis. You need to make sure the important aspect of gap analysis is determining the cause of the gap. The fact that gap exists means there is a lack of adequate security control, right? But why does that gap exist? There are several common reasons for security gaps. Lack of security training leading to non-compliant behavior, right? Security training is important too. Intentional or negligent disregard of security policies, right? Unintentional consequences of control or policy changes, right? um, addition or modification of hardware software without risk analysis, configuration changes without proper risk that security gaps can come in an organization. Okay. So basically, also we need to make sure that we adhere to this compliance laws, that Family Education Right and Privacy Act, uh, Federal Financial Institutional Examination Council, Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. If you are a school, you need to make sure that you have this policy in place. Gramm-Leach, Bailey Act, GLBA Act, Government Information Security Reform, U.S. Patriotic Act, Federal Information Security Management Act, FISMA. These are some of the compliance laws that all the companies, based on their business, have to adhere to this compliance laws. And if you don't adhere to the laws, what happens, folks? Anybody?
Means you have a risk as well as you can be fined.
Yeah, absolutely. You can be fined. You can be fined millions of dollars. Sometimes
Yes.
I think some companies have paid billions of dollars too in
Yeah,
fines.
yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And some of the companies, it's making it like some of the prison time too now. So if you're, you know, so basically, if you don't adhere to the laws, then there is in some of the cases, I don't know exactly which law. I'll try to find out because CISOs are right now, and that's why they're a little worried too on those kind of laws. They might go to prison if you don't adhere to those laws. So
So
yeah.
I have one question on these laws.
Mhm.
Means, okay, some of the laws is dependent on what type of business you are doing, what type of
Mhm.
entity you are. But how to choose more than one law? Or you should adhere to only one law, or you can have a
No,
multiple law, right?
you have a complete legal department in your company. They'll guide you which laws are relevant to you.
Relevant to.
Yeah, exactly. You're not going to do that. See, that's what I'm saying. Security is basically you are getting in depth of you are basically in every, like for example, you're a database administrator. What do? You just work in database. That's it. But when you're in security, you are at a very high level. You need to know everything. You'll be working with lawyers, you'll be working with architects, you'll be working with everybody in the company, because you need to work with everybody to how are you going to make sure that you are adhering the laws, what laws you have to follow. That is going to come from your legal team. You have like we have like about 100 lawyers working in our legal department with for Europe, and it's not just US laws, there is international laws too, that if your company is doing international business, then you have to adhere to their laws as well. So all those things. Yeah,
So
we
in
have
this
to adhere
case,
to UK
suppose,
laws. I'm
Mhm.
sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, suppose you take USA Patriot Act, fine. So it
Mhm.
is applicable to those companies which are working either in US or their business is in US also. Of course, they may be outside. So they have to go for US Patriot law.
Mhm.
No any other law. Suppose we are working in USA only, then I have to only go for USA Patriot law, not other law. Fine?
No. If you're just doing business in US, yes. But if you're
Yeah,
doing business in UK, then you have to follow the UK
follow the
laws.
UK law. Or
Yes.
if UK is
Also,
doing business in USA, they can follow both. They have
yeah,
to follow both.
yes,
Okay,
they have to
okay.
follow. Yes. So any company you're doing business in, you have to follow their laws. You cannot say like you do business in UK and say, no, I'm a US company, I'm not going to follow your laws. They'll put you fines on you. You have to follow. If you're doing business, and then same thing with UK too. If UK is saying, oh, my company is in UK, I do business in US, but I don't follow US laws, then they'll get fines from US. Yeah. So there's a lot of like the health portability, Federal Information Security Modernization Act, FISMA, payment card industry, PCI DSS, data security standards. So this is one of the big ones too. California Consumer Privacy Act. If you are in California, if you're doing business in not even just, even states have their own
Yeah,
specific
their
laws
own
too. So if
effect.
you're doing,
Yeah.
if you're doing business in California, you have to follow this law, plus all the other states' laws too. First, you have to follow all the federal laws, and then you have to also follow state laws. So, for example, if your company does not do business in California, then they will be following just the FISMA. They won't follow California. But your company does business in California, then you have to follow FISMA and California too. So you know what I'm saying? So state
Yeah.
will have their own laws, federal will have their own laws, every country will have their own laws. That's why you go to your legal, you get everything from your legal, and they will give you exactly what are the requirements of those laws, how you can put controls in place and all that. Then you work with different teams to adhere to those laws.
So here, Sarbanes SOX law, it is applicable globally, SOX
I'm
law?
not sure. I have to check.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
not sure. We have to, yeah, you can check all those, like you just put it in
Mhm.
pilot, Copilot, and see you'll get the answer to it. Yeah, it's very hard to remember. There's so many laws out there, but you'll find out from your company. Once you talk to your legal team, they'll give you exactly what are the things you need to follow. But it's good to know these things, right? Compliance in real life, right? Basically, these are the examples of different laws, different from countries. How do global organizations keep track? If that's what we just discussed, right? If I'm a US citizen but I'm physically in China, which laws applies to me? One approach, you must you use most restrictive and apply downsides. Okay, so for example, yeah, you're a US citizen and you work in China, right? So now whether US laws applies to you or China laws apply. So you talk to your legal team and then identify what are the things you need to do. That's what it's saying here. Ethical considerations also, it is also very important. You have to have ethical considerations when you are in business, right? What data can be collected, what data can we sell, right to be forgotten. Anybody know what this right to be forgotten is? Who owns that data? Investments in drone delivery is increasing. What data can they gather during the deliveries? Those kind of things, all of the things is basically we need to uh, have ethical considerations too. Otherwise, basically, it might, like you said, your company brand will uh, affect if you don't do ethical. Now, for example, right, if Facebook, right, just to give you an example, right, Facebook or any social media platform, right, you put all your information in there, personal information, like your family pictures and all that, and you want to only show that data to people who you want to share it with, right? But unfortunately, sometimes what happens is anybody can see that data. That's a dangerous thing, right? So that's a ethical concern there, right? And then what happens once everybody's seeing your pictures, the whole world, if the whole world is seeing my family pictures, I'm never going to put my family pictures on a social media site, right? Which is, because it's again, and always remember, anything you put digitally, make sure you only put things where you don't regret putting it, because once it's gone up digitally, it's never deleted. It will always be there. So folks, be very careful when you put your information digitally anywhere, like so, especially the social media platforms and all that. Once it's uploaded, it's gone. It's going to stay there forever. They will never delete it. It will always be there. So anything you want to be putting on social media platforms or any for platforms, think before you put any data in there. People just go and put whatever, there'll be some consequences, and that has happened to a lot of people. So be very careful when you handle your social media accounts and all that. Okay, so the one important thing I wanted to talk about here is right to be forgotten. So basically, can somebody tell me what this right to be forgotten is? So basically, right to be forgotten is basically you as a consumer, you have a right to ask the companies to delete your information. So for example, right, to insurance company, you gave your information, like your car, your home address, your name, whatever information they needed. Okay. And then now you are switching your company to some other insurance company. Now you have a right to basically tell the other company, hey, I'm not doing business with you anymore. Just please go ahead and delete my data. I don't want you to share my data with anybody. Please go ahead and basically delete that data. So that is one of the right that you have. And then if the company doesn't do that, and there is a lot of laws that says you have to, one of the example of that law is I think it's GDRP. Under GDRP, you have a right to be forgotten. So if you're following, if your company is following GDRP, that means, and always when you do business with any customers, just ask them what are the laws you follow. So that way you know that, okay, if I share my data, will I have a right to tell them to delete that data, remove that data, and will they remove it, right? So those are the things you should always ask, and then your company should know. And as a security professional, you should know what are the laws your company is following. And the best way to know those is by going to your legal department and getting all the information from your legal department. Okay, folks. Any questions? I know, folks, we are out of time. This is, I can go on for hours on this kind of topics, but any questions so far? And this is basically consider maturity and cost modules. I'm going to put this, just keep private data, private continuation, passwords, what are the authentication controls, authorization controls. Review this. This is important stuff, folks. Authorization and authentication controls too. Authorization is, password, PIN, biometric device, and all that. Authorization is, access control list, intrusion detection, prevention systems, all of those things. And password, what is considered as a good password, test 10 most common passwords, like basically people put this as, passwords. You should never do this kind of thing. So, and you can just test those, create strong passwords, putting the websites around password. You can just go and create here. Biometrics, how biometrics works. You can just, standard biometrics, are personal unique physical characteristics like fingerprintings. You all know that, right? So terminologies, right? What is critical business function, business impact, and total tolerable downtime, RTO, RPO, all of this, just terminologies there. Availability and productivity is right here. Assessing maximum tolerable downtime. What is the maximum tolerable downtime for your company? Those kind of things. Just review this. Speed of impact, plan, review, and testing. All this thing. Backup data and application, backup stored media, location access, all those things you need to have in instance handling, how you want to handle the system, primary setups to disaster recovery, ensure the safety of the individual, contain the damage. First thing is contain the damage, right? Assess the damage and begin recovery. So these are the first primary steps you take in disaster recovery, right? Restoring damaged systems, how do you restore the damaged systems? Is all given here, all the references. This is the book I'm following, Fundamentals of Information Security. If you have not gotten this book, I'll highly recommend you to get it. But most of the information I'm putting in the slides. So unfortunately, folks, we are out of time. So we will cover our SQL injection first thing in our next class. Hopefully it shouldn't take more than 15-20 minutes. And then in the meantime, I will also give you that what do you call that, social engineering stuff. I'll put it in the chat, and then you can try it too. And if you have any questions, we can definitely discuss that as well. So any questions so far, folks?
Nope.
Everybody good?
Next week question. Next week question.
Yeah, I'm going to give that now. Yes, brother. Give me 1 sec. I'm going to share here our slides from today and then next week questions. Okay.
Yes, sir. Do we have a WhatsApp group for this class?
What, brother?
You have WhatsApp group for this class? WhatsApp. Is there
No,
anyone?
we don't need WhatsApp. Oops. No, we don't need WhatsApp group, brother. We are good. All right.
Also, one request, if you could share the documents in PDF format, because some of us have Mac and we don't have Word.
Okay. I will put this. I think most of this are PDF, but if it is not, let me know. I will add those as PDF. Give me 1 sec. For privacy information security. Okay. And this is the today's presentations right here. And this presentations will be uploaded to the Canvas too. So if you need to get it from Canvas, you can get it from Canvas too. And then I'm going to put 5 questions from this week. So 5 questions from this week is also there now. Batch 4, week 4. Can you make sure everybody downloads those 5 questions from this week? And what is business, BPA, DPR, BCP, and all those questions. And I'm hoping I'll get the interesting answers like today's class. Today's presentations was excellent, folks. Great job. And SQL injection attack, we will do it next week. I think it's a little complicated. I'll explain to you, and then we'll all do it together after the presentations tomorrow's class, in our next week class. Everybody downloaded those 5 questions? Everybody good? Any other questions, comments, suggestions, folks, before we wrap up and call it a day? Everybody good?
Recording stopped.
Stop recording here too. Okay, everyone, have a great afternoon and evening and nice weekend. I'll see you all next week.
Okay, brother. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum.
How can I be able to contact you? In case I need some assistance to something to discuss with you in a private one-on-one, how can I reach you?
Text me, brother.
What number?
Who's this?
This is Abu.
Abu Hud. Yeah, text me, Abu Hud. We'll set up some time, maybe in a day or two, and we'll discuss. Okay.
I don't see your contact.
Okay. Thank you, brother. Assalamu alaikum.